Hi, my name is Paul and I'm an alcoholic. And it's good to be here and it's good to be sober. I want to thank the committee for giving me the opportunity to come here and do service tonight. It's a great privilege and an honor to be asked to speak at a meeting of AA, and one I don't take lightly. I want to thank Mike and Karen for being so kind to come and pick me up at the airport today. And I just love this convention. It's a wonderful place to be. If it's your first time, you're in for the weekend of your life, you know. And I've been at this hotel many times, and I've just got one slight criticism. The towels in the rooms are so soft and big and fluffy, I always have so much trouble getting them into my suitcase, you know. Every year I got to push down to get them all in, you know. And I'm standing here tonight. I'm the epitome of mixed emotions. I actually have to go back to New York City tomorrow. And the reason why is my 5-year-old daughter, yes, my 5-year-old daughter. I'm not telepathic, but I know you're thinking, I could give the best AA talk right now, and all you're thinking is, this guy's got a 5-year-old daughter. My 5-year-old daughter's in a Christmas show, and it's a no miss. And I said to Bob, listen, and he said, no problem, Paul, first things first. So she's been practicing. I'm hearing these Christmas songs all around the house for the last week. So she's singing tomorrow night and Saturday night, and God willing, I'll be sitting in the front row. And these are just some of the gifts of a life here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you're new here today, and I know we got some newcomers here, I always like to tell a joke as well. There's a guy, and he's got 90 days in the program, and he's talking to a sponsor. And the sponsor says to him, now just think where you were just 90 days ago. And the sponsee says, well, actually, I was sitting in a hot tub, half drunk, surrounded by beautiful women in bikinis. And the sponsor says, isn't it wonderful that you don't have to live that way anymore today, you know? Some of you are thinking, this is it. But I tell you, I'm not here to sell Alcoholics Anonymous tonight. It sells itself. This is attraction, not promotion. But I will tell you this. I don't mean cash and prizes. You cannot get where I'm standing tonight from where I came from without Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an impossible journey. And why do I continue to come to AA? I know how the movie goes, but I wouldn't miss it. To see someone walking in that door on the worst night of their life and be given the grace not to drink. And I think AA is so much more than grace. It's mercy. And the definition of mercy I like the best is entering into the chaos of another person's life. And back in August of 1992, when the few people left in my life were going that way, the only people coming this way was Alcoholics Anonymous. And they carried this message. My message might even keep me sober. They carried this message. And what is the message of Alcoholics Anonymous if you're new here tonight? When complete defeat through alcohol, step 1. I have a body that won't let me drink, and a mind won't let me stop. One drink creates a thirst I can't quench. I haven't a drink with your help, and I say as a testament to you, not me, I haven't had a drink since August of 1992. One drink tonight, not 5, not 10. One drink tonight, destination unknown. And these beautiful people brought me from a place of powerlessness and unmanageability, not to a place where I'm powerful, that would be ego, but a place where I have access to power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you're new here today, don't think that you've got nothing to offer AA because you're just here. AA will meet you exactly where you are. Don't think that you've got to go and meet AA. AA will meet you exactly where you are. My sponsor uses that analogy, and I just love it. We're sitting around the AA campfire this weekend. I just love that analogy. You know, and everyone, I mean, I hear this sometimes in New York, and I don't like it. They'll say, oh, I'm not going to go into a drunk-a-log. I'm not going to go into the crash. I'm not going to go into the big. I don't understand that. We are a storytelling society. That's what we have, is our stories. And we do sit around the AA campfire and we tell our stories. There's a line I misquoted for years at AA. I would have said, how it was, what happened, and how it is today. It doesn't say that. It says how we were, what happened, and how we are today. And I'm here to tell you, if you're new here today, everyone's got something to offer in Alcoholics Anonymous. This gentleman right here used to always say, AA is the only place where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And everybody in here has got worth and value. You come here 1 day sober, 30 days sober, 5 years sober, and we all throw it into the middle. I mean, AA is a funny place. I mean, if you stay here for a while, you'll get longevity, but not seniority. If I think I'm better than somebody else because I'm here a few 24 hours, shame on me. And if you're new here tonight, come all the way in and sit all the way down, because we are your people. I mean, it is the only place I know in the world that you can walk into a room full of strangers and start reminiscing. I mean, if I want to know something about my next door neighbour, I might have to ask him, what do you work at? Are you a Jan fan or a Jet fan or Yankee or the Mets? Not in AA. You tell me you're an alcoholic, I know enough. I know you've experienced terror, frustration, bewilderment, despair. I know you put a drink to your lips as your tears are rolling down your face and you drank it anyway. I know that friends and family and loved ones, sometimes in my case on bended knee, begged me not to drink. And for goodness sake, in the end of my drinking, I was drinking against my own will. I know that because I'm an alcoholic, and I know that because you're an alcoholic. And there's that bond that we have together. So if you're new here tonight, come all the way into the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a line in chapter 4, and it talks about the old ancient theory of the flat earth. I'm a great believer that the AA world is a flat earth. If you go to the edge of AA, you're going off. And the thing about going to the edge of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's a drift. It's almost a glacial drift. And you don't realize you're going till you're gone. And by the time you get to the edge of AA, if there's any signposts, they're in a language you don't speak anymore, and a language you don't understand anymore. Because we speak a certain language here in AA. You know where my disease operates? From the neck up. That's where my alcoholism lives. My disease wants me talking to me about me. That's a conversation I cannot have. That's a conversation that never ends well. And what is this whole program? And you'll see it this weekend. What are the whole steps of AA and our fellowship? See, my disease tells me this is where the big show's going on. But you people tell me, and our program tells me, this whole program is designed to drag me down out of here where I think the big show is going on into here where the real show is going on. Because we speak the language of the heart. When you talk about you, I find out about me. The bond that we have here as alcoholics. I was very friendly with Liz B. Liz was the first African-American woman to get sober in AA. She died last year. She was 100 years old and just a month shy of 70 years sober. And Liz and I spent a lot of time in cars, just the two of us driving around different parts of New York. And Liz would always say when she was sharing, without you, there's no me. So simple, but so deeply profound. If I'm doing AA alone, I'm not doing AA. There's a friend of mine says it's BB. I said, what's BB? He says, I don't know, but it's not AA, you know? And I think Bill Wilson got that. We're here celebrating this weekend The anniversary of Bill Wilson, who got sober December 11th. I mean, thank God. I mean, there's been booze that's been around for 9,000 years. Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, that was a 24-hour clock. AA has been around for 15 minutes. But it's been a very good 15 minutes. And because of Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith. Before that, where did people like us go? There wasn't a lot of options. You went to a jail, you went to an institution, or you went to a graveyard. And the sad thing about this disease, by the time you're actually graveyard dead, you've been dead mentally and spiritually and emotionally for years. And anybody who mattered in your life is long gone. Because that's what we do to people. We squeeze and we squeeze till they're like, go in, drink, or go in, don't drink. But you gotta go. And I think Bill Wilson was divinely inspired. I've stood outside that, it's not a hospital today, up in Central Park West, where Towns Hospital used to be. And Bill Wilson got sober there on December 11th. And I believe he was divinely inspired. I know we throw that word around. What is divine inspiration? It's been raised to a level of consciousness that you didn't know before. And Bill Wilson lay in that hospital bed on December 11th. And he talks about in his story, and he had that spiritual awakening. And his first thought wouldn't have been my first thought. I'm a pull the gangplank up, I'm on board type of guy. His first thought was, surely there must be other people out there like me. I wonder if my experience can help them. Even before he left that hospital, it says in the doctor's opinion, he requested the privilege of speaking with the other patients. We didn't have steps. We didn't have traditions. We didn't have literature, but we had each other. And what is A? If you put A in the refiner's fire and you bring it down to its simplest form, what is it? Like was read, it's one alcoholic talking with another alcoholic to remove feelings of differentness and separateness and uniqueness. I am you and you are me. I hope tonight I don't talk to an alcoholic. I hope I don't talk at an alcoholic. I hope and pray I don't get up in the spiritual hilltop and talk down to an alcoholic. I hope I stand here tonight, one alcoholic talking with another. And before Bill Wilson left that hospital, I mean, the jokes write themselves. Hold on a second. I mean, the guy who's been detoxed 3 times here, he wants to talk with the patients. But it says in our literature, with serious misgiving, they allowed it to happen. And Bill Wilson ran around New York City for 6 months trying to get people sober, talking to people, talking at people, talking down to people. And he didn't get one person sober. I always discounted the non-alcoholic. Like, what do they know? We would not be here tonight if it wasn't for our non-alcoholic friends. Because he'd been running around New York City to Skid Row places and flop houses and park benches and talking to these guys and gals about this grand experience he had where the room filled up with light and the blinds were flapping. You imagine talking to somebody with a bottle in a brown bag. They're like, maybe you need a drink of this, you know. And he went back home to his home and he put his head in his hands and he says to Lois, I thought I was on the right track. I thought trying to work with other alcoholics. 6 months I've been running around New York City and I haven't got one person sober. What's the old saying in AA? When you're inside the jar, you can't read the label. Lois is standing outside the jar. She states the plainly obvious. She says, Bill, you're still sober. That's right. It goes back to Dr. Silkworth, another non-alcoholic. And Dr. Silkworth says to him, Bill, you got to get up the spiritual hilltop. You're running around trying to jam that experience down people. Why don't you hit the alcoholic with the 1-2 punch that puts every alcoholic on the ropes? The mental obsession that gets him drinking and the physical allergy that keeps him drinking once he starts, which we have in our first paragraph in chapter 4. So armed with this new information, Bill Wilson left for Akron, Ohio. And we know a little of the story many times if Gail has done the history talk, probably this weekend as well. And the deal fell through. And Bill Wilson was standing on a Saturday afternoon in the Mayflower Hotel with $10 in his pocket. The phone was there and the bar was there. And at that time, on Saturday afternoon of Mother's Day weekend of 1935, your life and my life hung by a thread this thin. Because people say, well, if it hadn't been Bill and Bob, it would have been John and Jim. No. What do they say in the old space race? That window of opportunity. There was a window of opportunity Mother's Day weekend of 1935. And thank God for us and our lives and our families' lives. Bill Wilson didn't go into the bar and be king for a day. He walked over to the phones and he made several phone calls. And he eventually found himself talking to a lady who said, I know someone that you can help. And that would be Dr. Bob Smith. And the next day, Mother's Day Sunday, and Dr. Bob was so hungover, he couldn't even drive his own car. His 15-year-old son, Smitty, who would end up in Al-Anon, drove the car. And if you ever get a chance to go to that gatehouse, they met each other, and Dr. Bob was shaking like a bag of bottles. And they met each other, got introduced, and they went off into a little side room. And Dr. Bob had asked his wife, I'll give this guy 15 minutes, but that's it. And they didn't talk for 15 minutes. They spoke for almost 5 hours. And Alcoholics Anonymous was born. Because Bill Wilson got off the spiritual hilltop. He said to Dr. Bob, did you ever find yourself drinking when you didn't want to drink? And Dr. Bob said, yes, yesterday. Did you ever find yourself drinking and you can't stop? Yesterday. And what does our literature say? Dr. Bob says in a story, this was the first human being that he ever met, that he felt fully understood him, and not because he read it in a book somewhere. I mean, that's what we have. We're uniquely qualified. It makes perfect sense to me now that God, in His infinite wisdom, would use alcoholics to get alcoholics sober. I listened to nobody. Since I was a kid back in Belfast, soccer coaches, girlfriends, mother, father, youth club, in one ear and out the other ear. But I listen with you because you're my people. What do they talk about? The old hierarchy. They talk about the doctor treats the symptoms and the alcoholic dies drunk. The priest or the clergy people look for the lack of religious conviction, but the alcoholic dies drunk. The psychiatrist looks for the causes, and the alcoholic dies drunk. The family tries to massage the effects, and the alcoholic dies drunk. Now, those things are important, don't get me wrong, but there's a hierarchy of recovery. First things first, the drinking has to stop, and nothing in human history has worked better than one alcoholic sharing experience, strength, and hope with another alcoholic. And that's why we're here this weekend. And I just love these weekends. I mean, there's a pamphlet, I hope it never goes out of circulation, A Member's Eye View. It's the last pamphlet that was written by one person, now they're written by committee. And the guy talks about in that pamphlet, just tell them what you've seen and tell them what you've heard. Now I know this weekend the coffee makers are here. The chair people are here. The people who open the doors for the meetings. The people who, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. But what do we do in these weekends? We come here and we fill up our spiritual tanks and we go back to our respective home groups and we tell them what we have seen and what we have heard. that we have seen the dead come back to life here in Alcoholics Anonymous. For that we are responsible. And my own story, I don't know why I'm an alcoholic. And to tell you the truth tonight, I could care less. Was I born an alcoholic? Did I become an alcoholic? Was it nature? Was it nurture? Was I a symptom looking for disease? I don't know, and I don't care. What's the old joke in AA? What came first, the chicken or the keg? A lot of guys that got drunk trying to fit. I just accept the fact tonight that I am an alcoholic. Everything I needed to know, I found out early in AA. My name is Paul, and I am an alcoholic. That tells me who I am, and where I am, and what I need to be doing. And they told me, if I make that the central fact of my life, things around may not get okay, but I will be okay. And that's what I want to say to anybody that's new. If you make that the central fact of you, and I'm so glad of the old timers, they didn't tell me my life would get better. They says, Paul, you will get better. And everything I needed to know, I probably found out in the first 30 days in AA. I mean, AA is a funny place. They don't tell you, 100 different things one time. They tell you 3 or 4 things 100 times over. But that's the way this thing works. I got to hear from you, and I got to hear from you, and I got to hear your experience, strength, and hope, and your experience, strength, and hope. I learned 2 + 2 is 4 once in my life, never to learn it again. The fact that I am powerless over alcohol, and my life's unmanageable, drunk or sober, when I'm running it, that's a lesson I have to learn on a regular basis. And I learned that through the shared experience, sitting around the AA campfire with my brothers and sisters. So my life's falling apart. You probably realized I'm not from the neighborhood originally, It's 35 years now since I left my native Cuba. And I'm from Belfast in Northern Ireland, and the sort of neighborhood I came from, if you didn't drink, you moved. Everybody drank, a working class, a hard drinking neighborhood. And I've heard people tell different stories from the podium. Some people were successful in their lives. Some people had a modicum of success. That is not my story. I came out of the starting blocks at 15. Within 6 months, I was getting my stomach pumped out on a school night. And they told my parents, it's a good job you brought him here. He probably would have died of alcoholic poisoning. And it got worse. And it got worse, and it got worse. But if you're new here tonight, sobriety is progressive as well. Now, I'm not going to stand up here like some snake oil salesman. There's things I lost through drinking, and they didn't come back. There's things you might have lost through drinking, and they might not come. Thank God for this program. Who among us could live with the guilt and the shame and remorse of our drinking if it wasn't for the 12 steps to alleviate that? We don't do the steps because they're nice. We do them because they're necessary for recovery. I can't change my past, but I am free of my past tonight because of Alcoholics Anonymous. I wasn't a sociopath. I knew the bridges I burned, the damage I did, and the people I walked away from. I can't change the past, but I was able to come to terms with the past through the steps of AA. So my life's fallen apart in Northern Ireland. I don't know if you know about Northern Ireland history. There was like a low-level civil war going on. I was a working-class Catholic from the wrong side of the tracks. I had a big chip on my shoulder. In fact, when I got to AA, a guy says to me, you know something? You're a well-balanced guy. I said, finally, somebody that knows what's going on around here, He says, yes, you got a chip on both shoulders, Hit at everything, hit at everybody, can always find the needle in the haystack. So my life's falling apart, and alcoholics are, we're so dramatic. I go home to my father one night and I said, Dad, sit down. I got some bad news for you. He said, what is it? I said, I'm going to America, and don't try and talk me out of it. He says, talk you out of it? I'll help you pack. On you go, Columbus. Let me give you some folly advice. Turn left at Greenland, you know. I know we got some new people here tonight that mightn't realize this. That Columbus was actually an alcoholic. When you think about it, he must have been an alcoholic. When he set off, he didn't know where he was going. When he got there, he didn't know where he was. When he got back, he didn't know where he had been. And he got a woman to pay for the trip, not once, but twice. So you know he might have been an alcoholic. So like driftwood, I washed up on Rockaway Beach. I don't know if you know Rockaway Beach, New York. It's a big Irish-American neighborhood. People go, oh, Rockaway Beach, the Irish Riviera. We know it better in AA as cirrhosis by the sea. There's two types of people in Rockaway Beach. Those that are in AA and those that should be in AA, you know. But water finds its own level. To make matters worse, I got a job as a bartender. Now, I hold the distinct title of being the worst bartender in the worst bar in Rockaway Beach. I worked in a bar. We had a bouncer on the door, but he was there to throw people into the bar. I mean, this bar had it all. Alcoholics, drug addicts, degenerate gamblers. And that was just the staff. That wasn't even the customers, you know. I'll give you a mental picture. You know the sort of a bar, if you want to see a full set of teeth, you need 32 customers, you know what I'm saying? Sort of high-end place we're talking. And look at these beautiful women here tonight. Ladies' night in this bar. The women that come into this bar, they look like they put their makeup on when they were jumping up and down on a trampoline, you know what I mean? Like over here. But water finds its own level and so do alcoholics, and I fit it in like a glove. I went into the whole ins and outs of it. I've been a weekend drinker, a daily drinker, a morning drinker, a binge drinker. The drinking that put my lights out, I became what we refer to as a periodic alcoholic. By the time I'm 27, it's ironic, the worst years of my drinking, I hope they were 27 to 30, were after I made a firm conviction not to drink anymore. What does it say in our book? Here are some of the methods we have tried. The operative word being, we have tried. Try this, try that. I mean, you know what I cannot thank AA enough for? AA has given me something between me and the first drink. You'll hear people say, oh, you're just an arm's length away from a drink. I suppose technically that's true. Right here, right now, tonight. Don't know about tomorrow. I'm 12 steps away from a drink. And that's a long way from when I first came into AA. But don't get me wrong, they're not 12 steps up to anything. They're 12 steps down to humility. I almost went to the graveyard thinking that I had a drinking problem. A drinking problem is solved by not drinking. Our big book gives a couple of examples. A romantic reason, a medical reason, a change of environment, and those people can stop or even moderate. But then it talks about us. What about the real alcoholic? I don't have a drinking problem. I have alcoholism. And that's a horse of a different color. Yes, it's physical. You can't enjoy the benefits of being sober and drink booze at the same time. But it's also mental and spiritual. I'll give you one vignette that just sums this up. At this stage of my drinking, 27 to 30, barroom drinking is a memory. All I would do, I'd lock myself in the apartment. Here's a recipe for unhappiness. Lock yourself in the apartment, close the blinds, drink round the clock, and play the saddest blues music. I would listen to stuff like the great Warren Zevon. If you won't leave me, I'll find somebody that will. The sort of songs alcoholics like to listen to. Or the Al-Anon version of that song. If you leave me, can I come too? I'm just joking. I love Al-Anon. I ran out of drink But I always know where to get drink. I'm a bartender in Rockaway. I go down to this place in the middle of the night. I collapsed in an alcoholic seizure. I had seizures before. I woke up in the local hospital in Rockaway. I was convulsing so bad that they put me on a restraining sheet, jacked me up full of Librium to get me off the ceiling. And eventually I leveled out. And there's a woman standing by the bedside. And with this on again, off again relationship. And I wasn't trying to be cinematic, but I took her hand and I said to her, I can't drink. It's obvious I can't drink. And I will never, ever drink again. I meant it. If you had put me in a lie detector machine, I would have passed with flying colors. I meant it at a deep level. But I left that hospital. I didn't know what the problem was, step 1. I didn't know what the solution was, step 12. And I hadn't got used good people to bring me between the two. It was me against the first drink one more time. And up in this moment in time tonight, I have never, in single-handed combat, beaten an obsession to drink. It's like getting in the ring with a heavyweight champion. A child could say, don't get in the ring. But don't get in the ring means don't take the first drink. And I don't know how not to take the first drink. So I keep getting back in the ring. Perhaps you can identify. And I tell myself, the epitaph of the alcoholic. It'll be different this time. I'm going to watch it. The minute it gets out of control, what does our doctor say? One drink and we're off on the well-known spree. And this happened over and over and over again. We talk about standing on the shoulders of people. I'm in this apartment and a piece of paper came under my door. I looked at this piece of paper. It said what I've been hearing since I was 15 back in Belfast. You're a nice guy, but you drink too much. It had a man's telephone number on it. It's strange enough, a piece of paper coming under your door. The stranger thing is, I picked up the phone because I'm Irish, I'm stoic, don't tell nobody nothing. I built these walls high and I built them deep. You weren't getting in, but guess what? I wasn't getting out. I built those walls. You didn't build them. I built them brick by brick. And this guy answered the phone. He's from the old South Bronx group in New York. And that group had a mantra. We don't give up on anybody. What a great mantra for a home group. And he asked me where I lived. And him and another guy came to my apartment. Two regular guys. One guy was a subway conductor. The other guy was a commercial removals guy in Manhattan. But like our book says, they were armed with the facts about themselves. Now, I thought they were going to come to my apartment and talk about my drinking. Because back in August of 92, that's what people wanted to talk about. Perhaps you've had these conversations. Paul, we need to talk about your drinking. And I would go, yeah, like Dr. Bob says, getting scolded. Yes, you're right. And as they're talking to me, I'm thinking, I wish they would go away so I could go drinking. But the ironic thing was these two men came and they sat down and they didn't talk about my drinking. They talked about their drinking. And they told story after story of their drinking. Like Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob. What's our most prized possession in AA? Identification. You talk about you, and I find out about me. I told these two men, within 20 minutes, something I hadn't told myself. I coughed up the big furball. I said, I can't stop drinking. The last time I got out of a hospital, I was drinking the same day as I got out of the hospital. What's wrong with me? And the guy put his arm around me and he said what I believe are the most beautiful words a suffering alcoholic can hear. He said, help is on the way. If you're new here tonight, let me put my arm around you and tell you, help is on the way. Little did I know that would be my sobriety date. About 36 hours later, I got bookended into a car and got brought to my first meeting of AA. And walking in that door is the greatest singular event in my life. Everything else is secondary and tertiary. And I'm so glad there wasn't a guy standing with a clipboard saying, check the box for what you want. I would have checked the box for not drinking. Shortchanged myself. Alcohol is only mentioned the first half of the first step. The rest of that program helps me to do something I can't do drunk or sober, and that's live out there, one day at a time. Isn't it amazing, the steps of AA? If I had anything to do with the steps, alcohol would be mentioned in every step, not the first 100 men and women. The first step states the problem, and then they turn it around, and 11 steps of solution. I left that meeting that night. It was a typical New York City meeting. 2 speakers and a leader. I don't know who spoke that night. I don't know what they said. I really don't. But I left that meeting that night. I had this feeling inside my stomach. I didn't know what it was in August of 1992, but I know tonight what it was. It was hope. I'm a great believer that Alcoholics Anonymous is hope in human form. People get people sober. God works through people. That's been my experience in AA. And the conduit that he uses to spread his love and grace is our fellowship. Wasn't that what Bill Wilson thought lying in that hospital bed? He had this vision of a chain of drunks, one drunk helping another. That's what I asked myself in my 10th step. How strong is my link in the chain? Is it strong to the people that went ahead? Or is it strong to if someone says to me tonight, Paul, can I comprehend the word serenity? Can I know peace? Absolutely. Another line I misquoted for years in AA. I would have said the road to happy destiny. It doesn't say that. It says the road of happy destiny. If you're one day sober, look down. You're on the road. With us. Shoulder to shoulder, we commence our journey. I mean, Bill Wilson got this, and I believe he was divinely. Before he, left that hospital, he was trying to practice the 12th step. Isn't that so true? If I'm not trying to practice the 12th step of AA in my life, what the hell am I doing here? I'm working an 11-step program. You know what an 11-step program is for a guy like me? It's nothing more than a self-help program. It's a highly evolved self-help program, but it's all about me. The 12th step completes that spiritual circuit. I remember in early sobriety, my sponsor and I was talking to him, and I says, Mother Teresa was still alive. And I said, he said, what do you think? I said, I'm about 3 months sober, maybe a month sober. And I said, I'm thinking of going to India to work with Mother Teresa and those terrible, poor, destitute people in Bombay then. And he said, that's not God's will for you. I said, it's not. He says, no. I know what God's will for you is. It's to come with me to the local group and make the coffee, and then stand at the door and greet people. Don't worry about India. Let's just go to the home group tonight. And that's so true. Keeping that door open. I guarantee you, if I walk around this hotel tonight, I'll find somebody drinking themselves to death tonight. Totally oblivious to what's going on in AA. And what's our job? What does AA ever ask me to do? Stay sober and try to help another alcoholic. And in trying to do that, which I don't do perfectly, I've been so grossly overpaid. It's embarrassing. And as Oscar Wilde, the Irish writer, says, how am I paid? I knew the price of everything and the value of nothing. AA has paid me things of real value. The big ticket items in AA are cashless. Sitting tomorrow night, watch my little girl up on the stage singing Christmas songs. I looked for that in a bottle of vodka. It wasn't there. But I found those moments. This gentleman here used to talk about the golden memories of a sober life. Now, every day is not Christmas concerts and so forth, but I mean the good life that Alcoholics Anonymous has given me, and all they've asked me to do is to stay sober and help another alcoholic. And it's not easy. If you're new here tonight, it's not easy getting sober. Getting sober is probably the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life, except one other thing: drink yourself to death. And the roller coaster goes up and the roller coaster goes down. Just don't get off. Stay on. Ride it out. I know we throw the word miracle around a lot in AA. What is a miracle? It's a complete reversal or upheaval of the laws of nature. It's in my nature tonight to be lying drunk somewhere. And I'm not. How'd that happen? Didn't happen because of me. It happened because of you. I know this is not a sales pitch, but if you're new here tonight, there's a miracle here with your name on it. Nobody can take it for you, and nobody can take it from you. What does George Eliot, the writer, says? It's never too late to live the life you're meant to live. That's so true. It is the only place I know you get to live 2 lives in one lifetime. You hear people say, oh, I came to AA and I got my life back. I don't want my life back. It sucked. I had it for 30 years. Are there people from the old drinking days? Yes, but things are different today. My world today is built on concrete. What's that great line from Days of Wine and Roses when Jack Lemmon says to Lee, we were lost on a sea of booze. And was any coordinates, pain and misery. And every once in a while, I'd wash up on dry land. You know, alcohol were great starters. But everything was always built on sand. Because of AA and these principles. My world is built on concrete today. And if you're new here today, you know, all these steps. You hear that analogy, you go 10 miles into the forest, you got to go 10 miles out. I don't believe that in AA. If you're sitting out there tonight, I don't care how deep and how dark and how painful your life is tonight, it tells me, and I will tell you, you're just 12 steps away from a new life. And I'm looking at this open door. That's all AA has ever asked us to do, is to keep these doors open. We don't have to worry about what's going on. If AA ever goes down, it'll be from the inside out, not the outside in. When we lose, when we forget where we came from, we forget those that came before. People like Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith that opened that window of opportunity. Because we can trace this moment in time back to that moment in time. I was friendly with a guy in New York. He got sober in 1961. And he was a new guy. They were starting a group up in the Bronx. And he was the new guy. So he was sent down to the World Services to pick up literature. So he goes down, and back in the day, brown paper and string. And he's picking up the literature, and he's walking out of the building. And he said there was this guy sitting with his feet up on the table smoking a cigarette. And he said, I was walking past him. And this guy goes, what have you got there? And he says, I got some literature. We're starting a new group up in the Bronx. And the guy says, another open door. And the guy said he walked on. And the guy says, you know who that is? That's Bill Wilson. He goes, I didn't know who Bill Wilson was. Thank you. He said, I just kept on walking out the building. He goes, if I knew that now, I'd go back and pulled up a chair. But that's what Bill Wilson says when he heard about a new group starting. Another open door. What's that iconic Don McLean song? I don't want to be here the day the music died. Oh, the music used to play, but it doesn't play anymore. Would not be a sad day for Alcoholics Anonymous. But I know I'm preaching to the choir because the people in here are enthusiastic about their sobriety. And I think the difficult times, and my own sobriety, how I fought this program. My God. Used people. My ego was so, I come into AA and people are talking about the problem and the solution, but my ego was so defended. You can fool them at the coffee pot at 7:30 at night. I've done it. You know when untreated alcoholism would come to visit me? 2 o'clock in the morning. Could-haves, should-haves, would-haves, guilt, shame, remorse. This is 2.5 years of drink with no program. And every night, this book would magically appear on my bedside table. And it wasn't a big book. It was called Where I Should Be in My Life by Now by Paul McQ. I hope you don't have one of those books at home. You read that at 2 o'clock in the morning with no drinking, no program. You're ready to put a rope over the rafters. And there was people talking about recovery. But my ego would rather be dead than wrong. There was people, I tell you how my ego was so defended. There was people pointing to the solution. You know what I do as an alcoholic? Rather than look at what you're pointing at, I look at who's doing the pointing. And you're human, so I'll find fault with you. And that'll allow me to discount you, dismiss you, disregard you, and rather than look at what you're pointing at, I will we have a word for that in our book. It's called plain insanity. But thank God these people persevered with me. And I get into the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which you'll hear about this weekend. And my life, I'm not saying the steps of the panacea but I live a good life today. And it's because of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was thinking about Bill Wilson, like some of the things in his life. I don't know if you know this story. And it's not easy getting sober. And it's not easy staying sober. I went through some difficult times in sobriety. I was just talking earlier on. 20 years sober. Went through a divorce. Resentment to here. How about up to here? There's a few people in this room know what I'm talking about. Were with me at that time. But I found out, if you're new here tonight, if you're going through something alone in AA, it's because you want to. There's not one thing in this world that you have to go through alone, now that you're sitting with us around the campfire. You know what gets you in trouble in AA when you've been sober for a while? Spiritual pride. How can I go to my home group at 20 years sober and tell them my life's fallen apart? Well, I don't need to do a PowerPoint presentation. But somebody needs to know what time of day it is in my spiritual world. Somebody's got to hear from here, not from here. And thank God, you men and women help me navigate. My sponsor says to me, take the high road. I don't want to take the high road. Take the high road. Bob's here tonight. He's sick of hearing this. I was talking to Bob, and he was asking me to say, he says, Bob, I'm not coming out to speak. My life's falling apart right in the middle of AA. And like my sponsor says to me, what do you think, this is rainbows and unicorns? And Bob says to me, Paul, this can either kick you into AA or this can kick you out of AA. And it's usually what way you're facing. And thank God I was facing towards you people, and it kicked me further into AA. And I'm not alone. I know there's people in this room right here, right now, going through difficult times in sobriety. But thank God we don't have to go through it alone. I think of one time, and I'll just say it before, 2 stories before I sit down. Our own co-founder, Bill Wilson. I used to think Bill Wilson got sober and everything was just wonderful. No, it wasn't. Moving 35 times in 2.5 years. At one stage, he was living above the 24th Street Clubhouse in Manhattan. His wife working in a department store. And he was living above the room, in this little room, and they were using packing cases for furniture, covering them with tablecloths. And he was sitting there feeling sorry for himself. Self-pity was setting in. He's having one of his imaginary ulcers. And the caretaker from the club says, Bill, there's some guy here wants to see you. He's a priest. Looks a bit disheveled. Do you want to see him? And Bill's thinking, oh, I need this like a hole in the head, you know? Send him up. And he hears this guy coming up the stairs. That guy was Father Ed Dowling, who suffered terribly from arthritis, laboured up the stairs, came into the room. Bill Wilson sitting there full of self-pity. Father Ed Dowling had been given an early manuscript of the Big Book, and he had seen that the steps were very like the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius of Loyola, who founded the Jesuits. And he was in New York, and he wanted to meet this guy who wrote these steps. And he searched out Bill Wilson. And Bill Wilson opened up to him. Bill Wilson did a fifth step. He realized he wasn't some disheveled priest. He was a brilliant Jesuit. And Bill Wilson opened up. He said, I'm one of the co-founders. There's people downstairs and their life's going on ahead. I'm one of the co-founders. When's my ship going to come in? How many times have I said that in sobriety? And Father Ed Dowling looked at him and says, Bill, you are blessed with divine dissatisfaction. And that will push you to go places you don't want to do and do things you don't want to do. If you're new here tonight, I hope you're blessed with divine dissatisfaction. Because the only way you coast in AA is downhill. I went through those difficult times with these people and got pushed to things and did things that I didn't think I was capable of be able to do one day at a time. The other story I'll just say about the beauty of our fellowship. I got sober in New York, but my brother's sober back in Belfast, and I go back there regular in sobriety. A number of years ago, I was back there on a trip, and over Christmas before I got married and had children, and they had a prison outside of Belfast where they kept the paramilitary prisoners called the Maze Prison. And the day after Christmas, which is Boxing Day, during visiting hours, one of the Protestant paramilitary leaders got murdered. And the country was on the brink of a civil war. I mean, it was bad. And I was asked to speak at a meeting in Belfast. And my brother says to me, we can't go down into Belfast tonight. They're burning buses, there's barricades, rats all over the place. I said, I will go anyway. He says, you've been living in the States too long. So we were in West Belfast, which is all Catholic. And we had to drive a circuitous route over the Peace Line into East Belfast to go to this meeting in a Protestant area. And there was 4 Catholics in the car. I love AA humor because one guy says, just think, the last time there was a Catholic in this part of Belfast, he was in the trunk of the car, you know what I mean? Like, you know, so we all sort of gallows humor, you know? So we take this circuitous route and we get to the meeting. Now the young kids over there, teenagers, they do a thing called joyriding where they'll steal cars and drag them around and burn them out. So they see us pulling up, strange faces. Now the chairperson of the meeting happened to be standing outside smoking a cigarette. He knew the kids. And he said, hey, leave that car alone. These guys are friends of ours. So we go into this meeting, this little small meeting in East Belfast, with the country on the brink of a civil war. I can't think of one other place, never mind Belfast, Northern Ireland that night, where Catholics and Protestants were sitting together, but they were sitting together in a meeting of AA. And all the stuff that was on the 6 o'clock news was left outside the meeting where it belongs. And we went into that meeting together. And we sat there huddled together. And we talked about our common problem and our common solution. And in that, there was more united us than ever divided us. Because when they talk about them, I find out about me. Now, I'm not going to tell you we left the meeting and went skipping down the street singing Kumbaya. But I felt good knowing those guys were sobering the world, and they thanked us for the effort we had made to get to the meeting that night. If you're new here tonight, AA will give you a front row seat for the very best that humanity has to offer. Come in this way, because if you're alcoholic, there's nothing out there for you. Only pain, trouble, and misery. There's some words that sum up how I feel about you and how I feel about Alcoholics Anonymous. This is the Irish blessing. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of His hand. Thank you so much.